They told him it was an honor, that dying for the emperor was the purest form of devotion. But as the engine roared to life and the runway blurred beneath him, he realized something terrifying. He didn't want to die. Before we begin, consider subscribing. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. He was 19. The ink on his university papers had barely dried when the draft letter arrived. Neatly folded, stamped with a red seal, and worded like an invitation rather than a command. His mother's hands trembled as she read it. His father didn't say a word, just nodded once and stepped out to smoke. Masaru wasn't a soldier. He loved literature, quiet mornings, and listening to the radio alone in his room. But in late 1944, that no longer mattered. Japan was burning. Tokyo's sky had turned orange and black. Bombs fell like rain. The empire needed young men of spirit, pilots willing to give their lives, with honor, for the emperor. At the training base in Kagoshima, he was one of 60 new recruits. The barracks smelled of mildew and sweat. Their boots blistered their feet. Their instructors blistered their minds. Every morning began with shouting, "Die with dignity. Your body is the emperor's. He who hesitates is a traitor." They ate rice and radish. They practiced dives into the sea. They wrote letters they were told not to sign because they wouldn't be delivered unless they died. Masaru wrote his anyway, every night. To his mother. He never said what they told him to say. He wrote about the dog back home, the way plum blossoms looked in spring, the sound of the kitchen door when it creaked open. They watched films showing smiling pilots smashing into American carriers. They were told that glory came only to those who gave everything. But at night, under their blankets, they whispered. About fear, about home, about wanting to live. One night, Masaru heard a stifled sob. It came from Yuji, a boy from Sapporo who'd barely spoken since arriving. Masaru pretended to be asleep. The next morning, Yuji's bunk was empty. By lunchtime, his name was on the departure board. Masaru asked their commander where he went. The reply came sharp. He became a god. Masaru didn't speak for the rest of the day. That night, he wrote another letter. This time, he signed it. He never knew if anyone would read it. They stopped calling them missions. By the third week, the word had changed. Now, it was honor flights. The blackboard listed names in white chalk. The higher your name climbed, the closer you were to godhood. 3 had flown yesterday. One of them, Shun, had given Masaru half a boiled egg at breakfast and joked about never having to clean his boots again. Now his bunk was stripped, his toothbrush gone, his name erased. At the base, the routine was precise, almost sacred. Wake at 500, march, drill, eat, clean, sit in rows and copy out passages from the Senjinkun, the imperial rescript to soldiers and sailors. No questions, no hesitation. Your soul must be sharp like your blade. They said that often. By week 5, Masaru could recite the emperor's address by heart. He didn't know if he believed it. That didn't matter. Belief wasn't a requirement. Compliance was. The aircraft they trained on were nicknamed coffins with wings, outdated, stripped down, made for speed and finality. Bombs were welded in place. Fuel tanks held only enough for a one-way trip. There was no return. Every night, Masaru cleaned his plane like it was alive. He wiped down the fuselage, polished the canopy glass. Sometimes he whispered to it. Not prayers, just thoughts, memories, apologies. Then came Hiroki. Wild eyes, fast hands, a grin like he'd swallowed lightning. He wasn't afraid to speak. One night, while the others dozed, Hiroki leaned in close and said, "I don't want to die. Do you?" Masaru didn't answer. "I have an idea," Hiroki whispered. There's a way to fake illness. Internal bleeding, they won't check. You just have to cough right, hold your stomach, vomit water and rice. Masaru looked at him. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. The next morning, Hiroki wasn't at roll call. Later, Masaru saw him, pale and bent over in the infirmary. That night, Hiroki was back in the barracks. Quiet, face blank. He didn't speak again. The next morning, his name was written second on the blackboard. Masaru watched him walk to the hangar. He didn't look back. Later, someone said he volunteered. Masaru stared at the blackboard for a long time. The chalk moved, his name climbed. He was now fourth. The night before his flight, Masaru sat alone beside his cot, holding the paper he wasn't supposed to write on. The ink had smudged near the fold. He'd rewritten it twice already. This one he didn't sign. He just wrote, "Forgive me." The barracks were quiet. Too quiet. Nobody snored. Nobody joked. Nobody wished him luck. They all knew better now. At dawn, the instructors handed him his headband, the white one with the red circle in the center. Hachimaki, symbol of resolve. They tied it tightly, too tightly. But he didn't complain. He bowed deeply. They nodded back, as if they were proud. They weren't. They were tired. The airfield was wet with dew. Mechanics worked in silence. Masaru's plane, a Mitsubishi Zero, waited like a blade in a sheath. Someone handed him a bag with sugar cubes and dried plums. Another tradition, a final taste of sweetness before the sky. He climbed into the cockpit. The canopy shut. Everything went quiet. Then, footsteps, fast, urgent, a shout, "Hold the launch!" Masaru's engine hadn't even started. A senior officer ran onto the tarmac, waving a paper above his head. The war was over. The Emperor had surrendered. Silence. Then a voice through the headset. "Disembark." Masaru sat frozen. His hands gripped the controls. He'd said goodbye to his parents in a letter. He'd said goodbye to himself. He'd died already, in his mind. But now, there was no death. He opened the canopy slowly, climbed down. Around him, some pilots wept, others laughed. One dropped to his knees and kissed the earth. Masaru looked up. In the control tower, behind the glass, a man had been watching. Not an officer, not military, a photographer. His camera clicked once. Masaru never knew that photo would circle the world, that someone would ask, years later, what was he thinking in that moment? The answer never came. But maybe that was the point. Some truths are too quiet to survive history.